Hey everyone, this is Donna Druchunas with Sequential Artist Workshop, and we're going to talk about Procreate today and specifically have some fun drawing speech balloons and stuff and adding some text and yeah, things like that. So I'm going to spotlight my iPad, and that's what you'll spend most of your time looking at. So we're just going to make some stuff like this, and we'll primarily use brushes that came with Procreate. And yeah, so these are just some ones that I made this morning. I used a syrup brush. So these are just brushes I like that came with Procreate that I actually use a lot. The syrup brush, and I think that's in the inking group. The monoline brush is in calligraphy. So that makes a very, that makes a very standard professional kind of looking speech balloon. This is also drawn with monoline. This is drawn with syrup, and then I imported a dash brush. I found a free set I'll show you later, because when you whisper, you put dashes on it. And then this is Inca brush, which is, I think, an inking. And except for the dash brush, those are all in Procreate, and I use them all a lot. And then the fonts are ones I got from Blambot, except for this one, which I made. So anyway, so we're going to look at that, and we're going to do a bunch together. So just a little overview of how I think the process should go, because I tend to draw my speech balloons first, and then my text doesn't fit. I have to erase the speech balloon and redraw it. So you really want to put your text first, then draw a container for it. And then if you edit the text, if you're doing that really clean monoline top kind and your text doesn't fit anymore, you probably have to redo it. But then I often deform mine with warp or liquify or something if I edit my text and it doesn't fit anymore, because I like those free flowing styles. So I really like these like crazy kind of free form speech balloons better than these, but that's just me. So the fonts that I just mentioned, or that I have for free that are really good that you can look up at a later time, is blambot.com. They have a ton of free fonts. Most, or yeah, I would say more than half, are free for indie comics creators. So you can just choose that license. And if you bring up a font and it doesn't say free for indie comics creators, I bought one of theirs that I used in a lot of my comics. It was $20, but a lot are free. And then there's this Comica family that I'll use today in some of the examples, which is free, and can't hurt to get it. It's a whole family of matching fonts that have different styles, italics, titles, they all go together. So it's kind of cool. Anyway, so quickly I'll show you how I used a few of these, and then we'll draw together for a while. So this is not a speech balloon. It's a clip art thing that I used for captions because I wanted them to look like torn paper. So these are the ones I showed you that I used the monoline for. And this one I really like how it came out. Open. This one I really like how it came out. I like how the angles came out there. This one I probably would have preferred if it went more like that, but I didn't notice it when I did it. So but I think the tail's a little funky looking, but that's all your personality, right? And how much you want it to look consistent. I really like doing this kind of thing though. So these are some witches that were in a park, and I wanted their speech balloons to look like witchy, woo, and they're kind of singing, chanting. So that's another one that I like, and that would be one I did with syrup. Here's another one, still the same kind of funky or freehand shape, but I used one of the, I don't know which brush it was. I thought it was the Inca brush, but it's not. It's but it's one of those rough kind of inking brushes. that looks like you either used a dry brush or drew the line a couple of times. Yeah, and then that might be the last one that I want to show you for speech balloons. Yeah, so so if you have your iPads, I will go through with you and we'll make a few. We'll pick black for our ink. So in your color circle on the disc, if you double tap on the lower left corner, you get true black. So we can, and it doesn't really matter for what we're doing, but just so you know that. So I'm going to just make a blank layer in my canvas. And let's start with, I'm going to use syrup, which you can use syrup or any inking brush that you like. I suggest for speech balloons that you want something that is very solid. Sometimes I use dry ink for other things, but it doesn't always make a line that's totally solid. So if you try to fill the speech balloon with white, it leaks. You know what I mean? So I suggest a solid brush for them, but otherwise it doesn't matter. I'm going to use syrup because I love that one. And let's just draw a kind of a freehand speech balloon. And if you need to have it coming from a person, you can put a little stick figure on your page. And so I start at the tip of the tail and then just sweep around and make a shape. And try to end where I began. And of course, you can change the thickness of your brush. This is a very smooth brush, the syrup brush. If you're using a brush that is not smooth enough, where it kind of gets jaggedy, it shows your hand shaking too much, you can go into the brush. So click the brush. When it's highlighted, click it again. You come into Brush Studio. In stabilization, turn any of these up. I have not figured technically what the difference is, but if you turn the amount up on one or more of these, it makes your line really smooth. So watch when I turn it all the way down, my line can go really wonky. And as I turn them up, if I go all the way up, I really can't hardly make any shapes with my line. But if I turn it one of them up a medium amount, I makes a nice smooth line automatically. So you can draw things really quickly and get a nice smooth line. I find that, yeah, they come out better for me if I'm quick. If I try to go slow, I get messy lines. So after you draw a couple of those, go to your colors. And if you double click on the upper left of that circle, you get pure white. And you can just drop white inside the speech balloons. If your whole page turns white, you need to slide your pencil left before you let go when you fill it. There's a threshold on color fill. If it's too high, your whole document will turn white. Usually, if you have a really solid lines and they're thick, you won't have that happen, but that's what that is. So if anyone wants to show what they're doing at any time, feel free to holler and hold it up.
I have one. I don't know why. Somewhere I set something so some things turn out gray, even though I'm using black. And
Wait, hold it up again. Okay, that's the brush. Yeah, so that's a good question. Why do some things turn out gray if you have your brush, a black brush? So there's two reasons that can be happening. One is, I'll show you this on the dry ink brush because I know that it does that. If I hold my pencil straight up, I get a blacker line. If I hold it on the side, I get a lighter line. But so that's one thing. Some brushes have pressure sensitivity or tilt, that change the darkness of them. But also look over here. So we look at the top of this thing on the left side a lot. We look at the top of it for changing the size of our brush, but the bottom of it changes the opacity of the brush. So if you slide that down, no matter how dark your brush is, even if I pick syrup, it's going to come out, well, maybe not syrup. But there's so many settings inside the brushes, I couldn't really tell you what is happening.
I think I did something with opacity.
Yeah, so slide that
And I
all the
don't,
way to the top. I
okay.
hit that with my hand a lot. So I just proved myself that some brushes, the opacity doesn't affect. And that's because, and you can change this on brushes if you want. If we look in these brushes and we see dynamics and stroke path, and there's all these kind of things. Somewhere in here,
There it is.
Where do you get Brush Studio? I only see Brush Library.
so you open your brushes,
Okay.
okay? And we're looking at the syrup brush. It's
Yeah.
already blue. So once the brush is highlighted blue, if you touch it again, the Brush Studio opens.
Oh, okay.
And there's all kinds of settings in here for things. So on the different brushes, you can set minimum and maximum opacity. You can set what happens. Does it go faster or slower? The only way to learn these, I think, is just to play around with them. But the ones I use the most is the stabilization for the streamlining that I was showing you. And these overall properties I will change sometimes. But what I'm saying is there's so many settings in here that when people make a brush, they might spend a lot of time combining all these different settings. And so if a brush doesn't act how you think it maybe should, it's probably something they did in there in creating that brush.
Okay.
Because there's so many options. You can create probably 25 million unique brushes. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Okay, so here's everybody draw some fun ones, the freehand ones. You can also draw, of course, thought balloons, where you just draw some freehand dots and then kind of a cloud. So that's thinking instead of speaking. So like I said, I do these completely freehand when I'm working in this style. And of course you can drop the white into the little dots as well as into the big thing. So.
Donna, it's Pam. Hi.
Hey, Pam.
Can I ask you a question? I'm not getting true white. Could you show me on your color dial where you're finding true white?
Upper left quadrant.
Yeah.
So if you're not sure you're getting true white, switch to classic, which is this square, and go and slide all the way up to the upper left corner. That's another way to get true white and true black, all the way down on the.
Okay.
So that's
Okay.
a different
Great.
way that if you're having trouble tapping in the exact right place on that one, you can use this. And
great.
The two corners are pure white and pure black.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks.
So of course, freehand, you can do anything. If someone's like having a screaming fit, you can draw something like that. If you
Excuse me, Donna, would you do that motion more slowly, because I'm tapping like the best tap dancer and nothing is moving as a white filler in my
on the disc
however you're tapping to
fill
fill that with white.
Yeah. Okay. So whoops. So you make a shape.
Got that.
Okay, then you go up here and you pick white, whether you get it here or from your palette, whatever. I mean, this should work for any color. Then you take the the little color circle up here, and click it
The
and
upper
drag
right
it
one.
and let
Oh,
it
you're
go.
literally dragging it, not tapping it.
Yes, you're
Okay.
dragging it. You have to drag it in.
I dragged. Yay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's those are fun ones. I like to use them a lot, especially like if I'm doing comics for Instagram or anything that I want to put on to a comic that I drew by hand. I like this kind of style. I don't try to control it at all. But you'll have, you may not like syrup brush best. There's so many brushes that come with Procreate. In the inking palette, there's, I don't know, 10 or 20 or something. And in the calligraphy palette, there's a whole bunch too. And all of those, I think, are good ones for trying to do these kind of things. A lot of people like this tinderbox one. So you just have to play with the brushes and see which ones that are most comfortable to you. So I don't know why. I can't explain necessarily why I like the ones that I do. They're just ones that I ended up using all the time. So I put them into my favorites folder, and that way I can find them again.
So what I'm finding fascinating here, among other things, is how you just go swoosh, like you're making these teardrop shaped things, so that you can do it in like one motion, as opposed to the incredibly picky, which I hate, but feel like I've always had to do, like getting a decent oval and then getting a decent tail on it.
I am
which
going to
takes
show
me
you how.
twice as long as anything else on the page.
Yes, but I am going to show you how to do those as well.
Yeah. But what I'm noticing is that I like these, and
Yeah, I love these. You can make a longer tail on it, so you can go like that, and then make the swoop and make funny ones. Let me do a new layer. So you can also make the shape, add a tail, and then go in and erase any little bits that you don't like. And then that obviously takes up a little more time. So one of the reasons I like those, yes, is that I can just go swoosh, swoosh. And like I said, it helps if you have text first, but I just wanted to draw some fun ones. So those are the swooshy ones, just really fast and really, I think, fun. I think they're really dynamic. And of course, all of ours will look a little different because our style, and I think of style as you're drawing handwriting, is all a little different. Okay, do you want to switch brushes and try a different one? So see if you can find the monoline brush. I don't really know another one that's good for this particular style of bubble. The reason that I say that is no matter how hard you press, no matter how you no matter what you do, if you're on the monoline brush, everything is the same. You can press as hard as you want, it doesn't get thicker. You can turn the pencil, tilt it, it doesn't get thicker. It's always exact same thickness. So I think it's really good for making those speech balloons that are very standard looking. So you draw a shape, then do not let go. And did you see that? It will change to a perfect ellipse if you hold your pencil down before you pick it up. If you want a perfect circle, you just, while you're holding your pencil down, tap your finger down and it changes to a perfect circle. So these are, really sweet for that. And then you have to, of course, add the tail. So we'll put our little person here. And then I would add a tail. And I try to draw that again quickly because it comes out smoother. And then in this case, you would have to go in with the eraser and just erase the connection there. And you should be able to fill that with white as well. And you can still do fun things with this brush, like I just drew. And that speech bubble's way far away from the little person, so I drew a funny tail on it. But if you like the precise looking things, that's for you. That is for you. And you can do the same thing with thought balloons. So if I wanted to draw one and I wanted the little tiny leader things to be perfectly round, I would just make the circle, then touch with my finger, turns into a perfect circle. And you can make perfect arcs too, like just hold it. It doesn't have to be a whole shape. You see how that changes to a nice smooth curve?
Mhm.
So you can't do it for a whole thing like this. If I draw this whole shape and hold it down too long, it's going to turn it all to lines, which is really cool, but not what I was going for, right? This would be like someone's like brain is broken, or they're yelling, or they're confused, or a monster is talking, or something like that. You could use that for. But if you want to draw a speech, a thought bubble that has nice curves, you have to hold it, let it do the one curve, and then do it again. And let it smooth out each curve separately. Because anytime you draw a whole big shape and let it smooth it out, it turns it into straight lines. So,
Donna, is there any way to turn off that straight line?
are you getting them when you don't want them?
Yeah, because if, I'm trying to make a curve and suddenly it turns into a straight line. It's really annoying.
No, so you're drawing slowly.
Right.
Yeah. If you're drawing slowly, it sometimes changes your shape before you're ready. So you go in preferences. So it's the wrench for actions, and then over here on the left of that menu, there's preferences. And then you scroll down here to gesture controls. And in the list, you will find quick shape. So you have control. It default, it says draw and hold. And then you have a control of how long you have to hold to make it happen, or you can just turn that off completely. But then if it doesn't work later, remember that you turned it off. So you'll turn it back on if you want to use it.
So where did you went into the wrench, you went into
Wrench,
actions,
actions, preferences,
right?
and
And what's the
then
next one?
gesture controls.
Gesture. Okay.
Control.
Oh, all right. Got
And
it.
then quick shape is in there, but there's all kinds of things that you can change in here if you don't like the way certain things work in Procreate. You should take some time
Oh, yeah.
and see if you want to change any of them.
Yeah, I can see that you can change the delay so it doesn't happen so
Right.
quickly.
You put it up to like almost 2 seconds.
Yeah, it gives you time to finish your action before it starts straightening
Yeah.
out
So
all
I
those
turned
lines.
mine up to like almost 1 second because it was too fast for me.
Right.
But you can turn it up to almost 2 seconds. Yes. Or you can turn it off completely. So,
Okay, the
you know,
delay is a good feature. Thanks.
yeah, you have a lot of control of these things in Procreate. So, yeah, so that was kind of fun. You can the quick shapes can be other things too, like you can do a triangle, but sometimes it does that where the lines don't connect. Probably because I drew a really floppy. Yeah. Then you can make a kind of quadrilateral. And if you click up here, it gives you options. So I can change it to a rectangle, a square, or even an ellipse. Whoops, I missed. Let me go to a clean layer. So when you draw a shape, so say you draw the ellipse, it does a quick shape and you let go, a little thing pops up at the top. if you touch it, it says edit. And sometimes there's choices, and sometimes it just shows up these blue dots, and you can change the shape a little bit. If you drew it too round and you wanted to make it shorter, say. If I was drawing a square shape and I go in there, you can see it lets me do it's like a little bit of AI here, because right now Procreate's saying, okay, this is a quadrilateral, I can make it into a polyline, but I can't figure out how to make that into a square. Procreate says you got to do better than that. Sometimes you get, now this one, it can figure out how to make it a rectangle. So look at that when you're drawing and see what you get. And then in addition to picking those, again, I can drag the points around and make it into a unique shape if I want to. But once you let go and that menu disappears, you can't do that again. This is done, it's painted, it's glued on the page. Sally says she likes the studio pen for inking. So it's a little bit less variable than the when I use the syrup. The syrup does a really big difference between light pressure and hard pressure. So that might be too much for some people. So the studio pen is a good one to try. So let's see, let's add some text and then draw speech balloons around them. So if you've never added text before, it's the actions wrench. Only instead of preferences, you're going to go all the way to the left and say add, and then add text. And your keyboard will come up, and you can type whatever you want. This is me typing. Doesn't matter what you type. And so it made some text. Now, if I want to change the font, I have to highlight the text. So I have to like click on it 3 times or click in there once and find this little thing that says select all. And you'll see that my text is all outlined in blue now because it's all selected. And then I can click this A and my font menu comes up. So I can change that to the one I made. Oops, I unselected it. Okay. Change it to the one I made. I'll show you some of the ones I got from Blambot for free. This one's called Full Bleed. I might have paid for this one, Jack Armstrong, but I'm not sure. There's all say BB. This one's called Night Watcher. This is one I definitely paid for, Out of Line Pro. So these are all Blambot fonts. Yes, go ahead.
The Jack Armstrong comes with it.
Jack Armstrong came with it. Okay, thank you. And then I got some funky ones because I was doing ghosts. So I got this like called Rip Snort and Shallow Grave and You Murderer, I think. Torn Asunder. So I got some horror fonts from Blambot too. But they were all free except for the Out of Line Pro that I paid for, 20 bucks. So, okay, I put some type up. It's too big, so you can change it in 2 ways. One is you can just use the transform tool and uniform and drag it bigger or smaller. And the other way is you can go into the layer and edit the text. If your text is already highlighted, you can just touch it and do the triple click or click anywhere and select all. And then you can go into your A, and so we change the font. Here in the middle, you can change the size. And this is handy because like if I wanted to do every time this ghost talked in this font, I want theirs to be 38 points, I can type it in instead of dragging this. And then you can change some other spacing and things. Here, you can change left, center, or right. Speech balloons are usually done in centered paragraphs, so I'll leave that on centered. Then you just click away or click done. And now we can draw a speech bubble on a layer below that. That fits it. So I'm going to draw a freeform one because that seems like the freeform kind of type. Oh, my brush is way too big. All right. And I'll fill it with white. And I did that. So for the freeform ones, I want to show you something fun so you can play with it. I decided, well, it's too high. I want to change this a little bit. I just want to, since this is totally freeform, I'm not trying to keep it a perfect oval. You know, if I, whoops, go to black. If I made a new layer and made a perfect oval, I'd want it to stay a perfect oval. Here's one reason syrup's not good for the quick shapes, because when you hold it down at the end, it makes a fat dot. So syrup's not really good for quick shapes because you'd have to go back in and erase that. But quick shapes, you want to look very precise, but this I don't. So I can be on the layer of my speech balloon and click the transform arrow at the top and warp on the bottom. And then it puts this grid up and I can actually like reshape my speech balloon. And you'll notice if you're doing this, that the thickness of the lines changes as you do that. So this is really for a free form kind of thing. You wouldn't, that's why I said you wouldn't do this with the perfect ovals because they would, you did those with monoline, so the line was very consistent. So you can do that with warp and you can change it. If I decided I wanted to change the width of my paragraph, I can change, I can drag it in like that. So this is, I can also put hard returns in. And now I can, whoops, go to my speech balloon and use freeform, distort, warp, whatever, and mess around with changing the shape of it. Because it's a free form and I want it to look really hand-drawn, I can do that. And I think that is like so much fun and it adds personality. So that's what I do most of the time.
How, Donna, how did you select the font in order to maybe edit it? I've not seen the editing.
Okay, so there's two ways to select type to edit it. First
Okay.
is if the layer is highlighted in your layer list,
Right.
you can just touch it and the box comes up for editing and the keyboard comes up and you can move around by clicking in it and change the words.
Mine's not doing that for some reason. I have my text in its own text layer.
Does it still
You know,
say
it doesn't have a little A next to it. How
okay,
come?
so you no, this is a really good, I'm glad this happened to you. This is your layer is not text anymore. So what I think what you did is this. So remember, I was in here on my speech balloon layer and I was using the transform and I warped it, right? To change my layer. If you go on the text layer and you transform it, if you just use uniform or freeform, just change it, I'll make it smaller. I still have the A there. So it's still a text layer. If I use transform and warp on my text, which I can, and I do this sometimes, because that's also really fun, right? Isn't that fun looking? But watch what happens. The little red bar came up at the top, and over here now, it's not the big A. So this is not text anymore. This is
Right.
just a drawing. So you have to be very careful that you don't do that. If you want to do it, I'm going to undo it, turn it back to text. If you want to stretch your text all out of shape, make a copy of the layer. So swipe left and duplicate it. Then go to the original one, lock it, and hide it. And then you can do whatever you want. You know, I can go into this warp. I can mess up this one. And that one's not text anymore, but I still have that one in case I need to fix the typo or whatever. Yeah, but if you deform your text too much, Procreate can't leave it as text anymore. So it changes it to just a drawing layer. And then you can't edit that because Procreate doesn't know how to do it. That makes sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. The only way to redo this kind to another size in Procreate is to redraw it. Because if you scale it uniformly, the lines get smaller and bigger as you scale it. And if you warp it, the lines, if you can see, they're some places thinner, some places thicker. If that looks cool and you like it, that's fine. But if you want to keep the line completely uniform, you can't do that because when you warp things, the lines get warped as well as the shape. Do I ever find that I regret having the white and the speech bubble on the same layer? No, I don't really, but let's look at that. If I had this, as I do here, this is all one layer, and I decided I didn't want the white, I could go to select, automatic, and click in there, bring it up pretty high. Remember I said you can change how much is selected. If I select too much, it fits the whole page. So I'm going to start over. I'm going to select. And then clear. Whoop, that didn't work. Okay, select. 3-finger swipe down for a copy and paste menu. Cut. There. So clear doesn't work. I thought clear would do the same thing as cut. So I took it out. If you want to put your white on another layer, I have a blank layer way down in the bottom of my layers by coincidence. I can take this layer and click reference. So now this layer controls my color filling. So let me show you what that means. If I go to my blank layer and pick white and drag it, it filled the speech bubble up on the reference layer, but on its own layer. So you can keep things on separate layers if you really want to. I don't do that because it doesn't bother me. When I'm making a comic, I always end up with my text layers and speech bubbles way at the top, so they cover up everything else. So I just wanted to show you related to what we did with stretching the, I stretched the speech balloons, and you can do the stretching and stuff on text on purpose to make special effects. So and that you can do this by hand or with fonts. So I'm just gonna turn off everything, add a new layer, and this can be black and white or whatever. Pick any brush I want, and I'm just gonna say funk. So I have that. It's just thunk. And I can play with that with all of these distort. It's not text to begin with because I just drew it. So I can play with the distort, anything under the transform menu, and kind of just, make it look more funky. I can also, I love this. For special effects stuff, I use it a lot. Under this magic wand adjustments menu, all the way down near the bottom is the liquefy. And this is just like fun stuff. This one, it has push, which works kind of like the warp on that we did on transform. You notice it has all these different things. If you start with push, it's got different sliders for momentum, distortion, and pressure sensitivity. So you have to play with those and see what you like. But push, you can just push stuff around with it. That's exactly what it does. If distortion is down, it doesn't make it as weird, but it moves things around. So you can use push. Another one I really like for sound effects is this one, crystals. Look what this does. And like I said, I do a lot of stuff with ghosts and things in it. So I like that, like those sounds, because it makes it look like a little bit like a funny horror thing. But you can, swirl things. Now for this twirl left and twirl right, and for text, you're not going to want to do a lot because you still want to be able to read it. If I did it too much, it doesn't say anything anymore. But you can like expand, makes it get bigger wherever you press, and pinch makes it get smaller wherever you press. So you can really have fun with that for making really wild, really wild sound effects. And if I go into the wrench and add text, I can do the same thing with that. And even if I just start with that basic font, that's the default that it comes up with, I think. What is it? It's ANA 01. I think that's the one that Procreate starts with. So if I just use that, and now I can go, now this is going to also make it not text anymore, but I can take the adjustments magic wand and go into liquefy, and I can do all kinds of stuff to that too. And so I just used a font, and there I made it look all funky. So I could, I could play with those a lot for making sound effects. But you just have to remember, if you typed it, it's not text anymore after you use the transform, warp, or distort. Both of those will make it not text. And adjustments, liquefy. It's not text anymore. Pretty much anything you do in the adjustments level will turn it to not text. I don't want to say every single thing, but a lot of them. There's a lot of fun things in here you could play with for sound effects. Bloom makes it kind of glow. Depends what color it is and all, and you just have to play with these because you can get special effects. I use gradient maps a lot if I want to use certain colors, and it'll kind of make it the lighter colors. The gradient map maps some colors to the lighter colors and some colors to the darker colors. This isn't really a gradient map lesson, but I'm just showing you that how you can just make all kinds of funky things happen to the text with anything in the adjustments layer for sound effects. So I really like that for, I don't know what it would really say. It wouldn't just say text, it would say, ooh, if it was a ghost. But yeah, so that's the fun part of that for your sound effects. I did the same thing with these. This one was cool. I'm going to show you this trick. I'm going to add some text. Like I said, you just play with all these effects. So I'm going to add some text, and I'm going to say splat. Now, why didn't it show up? Ah, because it's in a wrong spot in my layer list. So I moved it. I'm gonna make it bigger. I'm gonna duplicate it, slide it over a little so it looks a little fatter and almost not quite overlapped. Like I said, just playing. Then I'm gonna merge those two layers. Whoops, turn everything else off. Okay, and now I can use hue, saturation, and brightness. I can change the color of it. Do whatever I want with that. Oh, there's a nice purple color. But maybe I don't want it to be all one color. So I can make a layer above it. This is a bonus thing because this is not really a text thing. But I can take a brush and I can scribble colors all above this. I'm in a separate layer now. I'm just going to scribble some colors here. I'm going to go into liquify and do some crystals on the colors, maybe twirl it. And I'm going to go into warp and I'm going to make sure the colors are overlapping the letters. Okay. And then I have my letters. I have my colors. I'm going to go on the colors that's right above the layer with the letters, which is not text anymore. I can say clipping mask. And now look at that. My letters are all colored with my crazy colors. And I can still color more on that layer. If I say, oh, I left that part too blank, I can still color on it and keep going. But it stays within the lines of the letters because it's right above the letters and it's marked as a clipping mask. So what clipping mask does, it says, you see that layer underneath you? It says, this is layer 13. It says, you see the layer splat underneath you? That's a clip, you're a clipping mask for that? It means you can't color outside those lines. That's what a layer mask does to a layer. It forces it to be inside the lines of the layer below it. So that's just another fun way to do that. I'll change my background color here to black, and then that shows up really cool. So it's a little bit washed out on the video, but anyway, I hope you guys had some fun, and we'll try some of these different kind of things and speech balloons and different special effects, and maybe be a little more playful in some of your comics. Okay, Carol, go to your speculative memoir workshop. Tell Lorraine I said hello. So, yeah, Pam, you still have your hand up, but I think that's from before. Yeah. Any other questions or anything? That's all I wanted to just play with today. Just some things like that, so you can try different things.
This is great.
This is great.
Yeah, it's like I picked up all kinds of things that are like peripheral to what you were, some of these things.
Yeah.
I've been trying to. Yeah, this is great.
How does that work? I might use a feature that's really not specifically only for speech balloons, but you can use it for something else as well,
Yeah.
like the distort and warp. You want to see something cool? But
Yeah.
this is just the last bonus thing. I'm gonna go into here, and here's this little thing I drew, right? Okay, here's this little character I drew, and I don't quite like her. Her face looks too flat or something. Well, I can use warp on her too.
Oh.
I can kind of add some, it kind of adds some dimension to her face. If you want more points to click on, you can click over here and you get more points even, and you can.
Wow.
So this is really fun for characters. So not just for special effects text, and you can,
Yeah.
warp her. It gives more dimension to her face. Look.
Mm-hmm.
Look
Yeah.
at the difference between that. It's super fun. Now she looks like 3D, right?
Yeah. It's so
Without
cool.
even coloring. So you can play with that for lots of things. Yeah. Anyway, enjoy your afternoon. I gotta go dye some yarn now.
Thanks so much. This
That
is
was great. Thank
fun.
you.
And the
Good
video
to see
will be on,
everybody. See you
video
tonight.
will be on YouTube soon. Bye-bye.